Greetings and salutations. They say it's got 1,000 uses, but you only need one reason to stockpile salt. Let's talk about it. Salt qualifies as a prepper must-have. It has multiple functions and will save you time, energy, and maybe even your life. Before we get into the uses of salt, I want to be clear. I'm talking about sodium chloride, free of iodine, and free of anti-caking agents. If you're worried about iodine, you should be. It's an essential element our body needs but doesn't produce. Iodine drops are cheap and have an indefinite shelf life when stored properly. A $20 bottle will last one person a year. I'll leave a link in the description. You could also eat seafood, seaweed, and kelp. If you're near the sea or if you're in a region with iodine-rich soil like South Carolina, you can get it from plants like potatoes, corn, navy beans, strawberries, spinach, and celery. Long story short, get you some drops and check out the iodine box for a year. Here are some of the ways that salt has been used. A deodorizing wash to remove scent from the body when hunting, extinguishing grease fires, cleaning cookware like cast iron, degreasing, removing rust on tools, faster cooking, softening well water, seasoning, preserving, supplement, disinfectant, passive dehumidifier, DIY batteries, hide, tanning, frost prevention when drying clothes, as well as a building material and many more. Obviously not a full list, but you get the idea. Salt is extremely useful. If you want to deep dive on salt and its uses over time, I recommend this book, Salt, A World History by Mark Kurlansky. You can pick it up on Amazon for $12. It's a good read. Comment below any good books that highlight salt the community wants to know. I want to highlight 4 uses of salt that I think are relevant for prepping. Number 1, preservation. Salt can be used to cure meat, preserve herbs, pickling, and fermenting veggies. This is the primary reason why I prefer to get my iodine from foods I eat or iodine drops, because iodine is antimicrobial. Table salt is no good for preserving, and anti-caking agents shorten shelf life and add unwanted chemicals and colors to the brine when fermenting or pickling. The shelf life of what you grow, hunt, or buy can be extended with salt. Growing food, raising livestock, hunting, and other ways of gathering food consume large blocks of time and energy. Methods of preservation help you store that energy that you've invested in that food for later use and gives you the option to ration food and the ability to make explosion of flavor well past the growing season. During and after the collapse, something as simple as a good seasoned meal may be what's needed to keep you moving forward. In addition, eating fermented food will keep your gut health in optimal shape, which will be critical in SHTF when food and water sources are questionable. All these things increase your chance of survival because it frees you up to focus on other necessary tasks that take up time and energy, like securing your perimeter and administering healthcare. Number 2, salt as a nutritional supplement to maintain hydration. It's an ingredient and an important one to make DIY Gatorade without all the sugar. But don't be fooled. Even if you get pink salt or sea salt, those trace minerals aren't adequate to resupply lost electrolytes. Consider adding apple cider vinegar for flavor, cream of tartar for potassium, and stevia for sweetener for a more complete rehydration drink. All of these ingredients you can potentially make or grow. I've grown stevia for years. I haven't tried making cream of tartar, but I have made wine for years, and it's a byproduct of the winemaking process. So maybe I'll try that in a future video if you're interested. Staying hydrated has always been important for me personally since I have a distance running background, but I feel it will become important to the masses as temperatures continue to rise and demand for water increases. Our dependence on water will become obvious. Number 3, disinfectant. You can use it as a mouthwash to heal cuts and busted lips, nasal wash, and flush wounds before treatment. My dentist has always recommended rinsing my mouth with warm salt water if I got a cut or busted lip. It doesn't feel the best, but the results are night and day. Since salt inhibits some bacteria in the mouth, my lip will heal in 2 days or so instead of a week. The same can be said for shallow cuts. The amount of physical labor during SHTF will most certainly lead to minor cuts and bruises that, if left untreated, could be fatal. Salt, among other things, can easily be used to treat these and increase your chances of avoiding infection. Number 4, barter. Salt has been used by many civilizations around the world as currency. One of the oldest and more interesting examples is the salt trade in West Africa, in which salt was harvested from deposits in the Sahara and transported by camel caravans to city centers like Timbuktu, where it was exchanged for gold. So literally worth its weight in gold. Rock salt was more valued than salt made from seawater because it stored and traveled well, since they were essentially large rock salt slabs. Preppers love talking about What are you stocking up for barter, if you plan to barter at all? My answer to this is I only plan to barter with other groups that have something I don't have. For example, I have no plan to keep bees, so honey is something I'd be willing to barter for. Salt is cheap now, but would be worth its weight in honey for me during SHTF. I'm over 4 hours from the coast. No one is making a trip like that post-collapse, and even if I did, it would require a lot of time to make solar-dried sea salt or a lot of fuel to make kiln-dried sea salt. All this to say, salt would definitely have a high value in my area, plus I'm not tempted to eat it, drink it, shoot it, like other barter items people talk about. Bonus use: passive dehumidifier. 2 50-pound sodium chloride salt blocks could be used to reduce humidity in an 8-foot by 8-foot space. Shaving the sides and placing them in a bucket, leaving some space at the bottom for the water to accumulate in, and be drained out of the bucket via tubing and then routed out of the storage area. Calcium chloride, another salt, is also inexpensive right now and is even more effective than sodium chloride and can potentially get humidity levels down to 30% humidity. Having these salts on hand post-collapse will be priceless, assuming power and thus air conditioning will be out of commission for most people. So those are my 4 uses of salt, plus a bonus use. Just the tip of the iceberg. There's obviously many other uses for salt. How much should you buy per person for your pantry? My recommendation is 10 pounds per person per year. That's what I'm doing. I package salt in quart-sized mason jars with plastic lids. Quart size because they're easy to manage, and plastic top because salt corrodes metal. 1 quart of sea salt weighs about 2.5 pounds. This will vary based on the grind of the salt that you choose. You will need at least 4 jars to store 10 pounds of salt for the year per person. Get the jars now before there's another lockdown, as they were hard to get during the first lockdown. I mostly get our jars from Tractor Supply, but you can get them from Ace Hardware, Target, Walmart, or whatever big box store has home goods in your area. If you're looking to store salt for trade, you'll want to buy it in bulk. For this, you have several options, but I'm warning you, call these companies, do your research, make sure all you're getting is sodium chloride and not a bunch of additives. 50-pound salt blocks can be purchased from farm supply stores for dirt cheap. I got mine from Tractor Supply, and it was like $6. Bulk salt is also available online at Amazon. You can get a 25-pound bag of non-iodized table salt for $29, and it's roughly $1.16 per pound. Or you can get a 55-pound bag of coarse sea salt for $87, which is about $1.58 per pound. Bulk salts are also available at restaurant supply stores like Restaurant Supply. If you have a membership, I don't, so not sure of their prices. It makes sense to get coarse grind salt for trade. It's more versatile since it can be ground finer if needed. In addition, I'm going with sea salt instead of non-iodized table salt. Although it's more expensive, I think it will work better for pickling, less chance of additives. I do have some concerns about salt that comes from seawater, but we are talking survival salt here. I'll use the Himalayan sea salt for everyday use. I will also be getting non-edible salts in bulk, such as calcium chloride, to act as a passive dehumidifier to ensure low humidity in my storage area, which is the primary reason why I got the 50-pound salt blocks. This is probably the best use for livestock salts and other non-food grade salts because the manufacturing process of the food processing of non-food grade salts can lead to certain levels of contamination that may or may not be acceptable to you. So it's something to think about. I prefer to use those as passive dehumidifiers instead of actual eating salt. But worst case scenario, you could use them for consumption, but I personally choose to use them as passive dehumidifiers. Salt, undervalued now, but priceless after the collapse. Get as much salt as you can while it's still cheap and accessible. If you enjoyed this video, consider giving me a thumbs up. Until next time, train daily and watch your back. Invisible Prepper out.